Inclusive Learning Approach, ILA. Inclusive Teaching Component. Training teachers to be inclusive. Teachers are at the heart of successful, inclusive education, which is why thousands of inclusive education teacher training programs exist globally. But how many of these programs lead to lasting change in teaching practice?
Before the knowledge of inclusion, before us being trained about inclusive education, it wasn't easy, both to the staffs and even the community. When the knowledge of inclusion came, we started understanding people one by one and how to handle different people in their diversities. So before inclusion, it was not a good community. There was poor school community relationships. People were not interested. Even the parents, they were looking at school like a different entities. Now, when we gained the knowledge of inclusive education, especially after we got the training, we came back and sat as a staff. We say, now this is the way to go. There is need for us to involve the parents. We knew the roles of the parents in education of their children. We thought we started handling children. We built very good relationships between learners, teachers, and the community. So you see now the whole changes, we are seeing the positive development in the school.
The ILA, Inclusive Teaching Component, used global experiences to develop a different training approach. What makes the Inclusive Teaching Component different?
Assessment should come last.
The training uses a cumulative approach, so teachers learn core inclusion skills before tackling other challenges. They learn practical skills, not just the theory of inclusive education. The training materials are adapted to each context. Trainers are carefully selected from within the education system and supported to work as a team. The approach enables change in pre-service and in-service teacher education and encourages Ministry of Education involvement from the start. Participating schools develop school inclusion teams that tackle inclusion challenges. There are observers who monitor change. Teachers use a self-assessment framework to track their own progress. The principal trainers. The inclusive teaching component uses experienced teacher trainers known as principal trainers, PTs.
One of your main roles is to choose trainers who can effectively carry out this training. These are trainers that are in their jobs already training. They can be in pre-service institutions, universities, colleges, who are delivering methodology. So these are lecturers who are training teachers. Also at local level, in districts and provinces, for example, we are looking for those trainers that are working in the district education offices, in the provincial offices. These trainers that you choose must be those that have a great interest in inclusion, who are passionate about the subject and who want to move this forward so that schools become more inclusive. Those trainers we want for the long term. It's not a one-off training, it is several years of training whereby they come, they work with us, then they go and deliver the training, and then they come back for another piece of training.
The PTs attend 2 or 3 training of trainers workshops each year. At the workshops, they practice using the training modules and suggest how to improve them. The PTs collaborate in pairs or small groups to deliver in-service training, INSET, to school teachers. The PTs commit to a sustained schedule of training in schools over 2 to 3 years.
The moment we are trained, we go out in these schools so that we roll out the same knowledge in inclusive education, so that we raise the pedagogical issues in the teacher quality as they interact with the pupils.
PTs are experienced professional teacher educators who must, in turn, be trained and mentored by skilled teacher educators. Teachers learn and experiment. Teachers learn about inclusive education during the INSET workshops. In between the workshops, they do action research. This helps them reflect on their situation and experiences. They work with each other and other stakeholders to find practical solutions to inclusion challenges. School inclusion teams. The inclusive teaching component encourages participating schools to develop school inclusion teams, SITs. SITs help schools become more inclusive. Often, they identify out-of-school children and help them come to school. SITs might include teachers, learners, parents, family and community members, and representatives from local organisations and businesses.
The challenge that was in some of the schools is that one of the schools I took her to, they said they could not afford her basing on the nature she was in. They said they could not afford to take care of her. So that is the challenge I found in some of the schools around us.
SITs can help schools identify low and no-cost ways to support learners.
From the school, we have the SIT. These SITs are just there to ensure that they provide the best environment for these other learners. They ensure that they induct all these learners to the school community. They ensure that in the school, they eliminate all the barriers. And this comprises of teachers and some community members who will also be represented to discuss matters affecting the school development.
So when you look at this school, do you think it supports people with disability?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So how do people with wheelchairs find their way into the classroom?
We couple from friends. Yeah.
Are your classes designed that a wheelchair can manage to enter class?
Yes. Yeah.
What was put there for them to be able to do?
Slides.
You call them slides?
Yeah, something like that. Slides whereby someone, even with a wheelchair, can go.
Okay. You call them ramps, eh?
It's ramps.
Yes.
Inclusive education means it has helped me a lot, whereby my child couldn't go to school, but when this inclusive school started, I took my child to school. Now here my child is enjoying her school learning at Shung Secondary School.
Observers. Observers are a crucial part of the teacher training approach. They come from within the education system. They learn about inclusive education, action research, and how teachers are being trained. Observers visit and record their impressions of schools before INSET happens. They revisit schools later to record changes in teaching practice, materials, attitudes, and infrastructure. Observers listen to teachers, learners, and parents' views and give constructive feedback to the school and PTs.
In fact, when you go to these schools in the program, the enrollment has increased. And these children have been in the villages. So that idea of mapping the barriers, where is the barrier? What can we do about it? Was a very great idea. Mapping where these learners with special needs are. Where are they? Who can be involved in bringing them on board? Was great. So,
it was an eye-opener walking into a school environment, actually walking into a community, seeing how the community was located or laid out, and noticing some of the things, the challenges that the community was facing. Reaching to the school, we understood clearly what challenges the school was facing based on what we had seen from the community. And of course, it was not just a once-off thing or us determining it, but having talked to the teachers, the parents, in that first baseline contact, we noticed that a lot of gaps were existing in the school. When it came to children with different vulnerability levels, they were not accessing education, not because they had a disability, no, but because they had different challenges. They could not cross the stream to come to school during the rainy season. They did not have books. Sometimes the school itself faced challenging lack of materials.
Self-assessment framework. Teachers are supported to use a self-assessment framework. This helps them critically reflect on what they have learned, how their teaching is changing, and what they still need to improve. The framework has 4 domains: teaching and learning, personal development and well-being, engaging parents, caregivers, and the community, and leadership and management.
I want to elaborate on the self-assessment metrics that is being used to assess the level of the practice in inclusive education in our school. We have 4 domains that help us check our improvement in inclusive education in the school. And these 4 domains, you have different competencies under them, because it is not only one area that you need to assess yourself in. And in this case, each of the competencies has to undergo 4 levels. At the beginning levels shows that you are aware of the inclusive education practice, but not yet practicing it. Then the second level is developing. In this case now, you are aware of the practice of inclusive education. You are showing some practice and not yet consistency in your practice. And you move to the level 3, where you have proficient. At a proficient level, you show practice of the awareness you got on inclusive education, sometimes with consistency in this case. Then the last level, that is the advanced. You now not only practice, but come in with the new innovations on the practice for inclusive education within the school.
Systemic change through pre-service training. After PTs have helped to adapt the training modules to their context, those based in teacher training institutions often start to integrate the training into their pre-service programs.
But we have an enrollment of about 600 to 700, all the 3 cohorts together. But as a college, we've been working mainly with the 3rd-year students in inclusive education, just to introduce them to what inclusion is. Matilda?
Yeah, so far we have trained 3 intakes. We started the first one, it was in 2017, and we trained them in the 3rd term. About 135 that time were trained. And I think we said we achieved something, because after the training, before they left, we could see the change in attitudes from them. And apart from that, even the lecturers were invited to that training. Before then, we had some misunderstanding between what inclusive education is and also special education. So after the first training, most lecturers appreciated because they were able to understand what inclusive education is and what special education is.
What have we achieved? The inclusive teaching component has led to positive changes in teaching and training practice. Here are a few reflections from participating trainers. PTs have supported teachers to fundamentally rethink their approach to pedagogy.
Another thing that we have learned as facilitators, and that has also changed the teachers' understanding of children, is knowing that children have different learning styles. Yeah, it's not just teaching a group of children, but teachers have learned to identify children as individuals and planning according to their learning styles. Yes, which are very important individual differences.
When inclusive education was introduced, especially what we've been doing, it has really awakened us. We are now looking at a different paradigm, a different shift of looking at all learners coming together in the school, participating in the school, and achieving according to their ability. So it's so grateful that we are having this inclusive education done.
PTs are more confident in advising and supporting teachers to have flexible attitudes and practices.
One of the course units that we take in the educational psychology program is growth and development. And in growth and development, there are aspects that are supposed to be addressed at every chronological age, where that age is supposed to be matched by developmental age. But I have looked at my students over the years, and I realize that many of them do not match chronological age with developmental age. And so I try to tell them that much as they have had challenges, especially in this part of the country where there has been war for a very long time, when they also go to the schools, they need to have a positive attitude. They may find children who are chronologically older for that developmental age. So they need to have a positive attitude and leave the psychological labeling of the students by calling them names, calling them situations that have caused them to delay in the educational system, and instead be accommodative and take up every child that they find in their classroom.
PTs have helped teachers recognise and respond to the pressures and expectations in the education system that can exclude some learners.
I see that this training has helped me to support my community and all the education stakeholders within the district. Looking at the time that we are in, that the country is preparing for a national examination, you find that teachers, parents, and then other stakeholders give a lot of pressure on teachers and pupils in order for the children to perform academically well with the aim of getting first grade. That is in the primary leaving examination, that our children are always subjected to a lot of examination, that the teachers tend to leave the practical aspect of teaching, but they focus so much on academics. And you find that learners who are not so much talented in academics find a lot of challenge. And this training has given me opportunity to talk to the teachers and parents in preparation for receiving of the results come 2023 as the PLE results will be released.
Change is also happening at the systemic level.
In creating IEPs, it has gone to a different section altogether, which is expressive arts. And that's the section that Mr. Mono is the head of section.
Sustaining change. To realise its full potential, the inclusive teaching component must be understood as a long-term process of improvement in the education system, not as a short-term NGO project.
There's so many projects that Uganda has carried out, but somewhere, somehow, some of these things are not followed up. And sometimes it's the reason why you find that they're not sustained. But the positive attitude you have shown by following up to see what is going on is going to give us a lot of hope. And I believe the schools, the regions that you have reached will embrace it and will try to sustain the program in their regions or in their schools. The most important thing is always a follow-up. But if you just give it there and you disappear, the people will relax and say, after all, nobody's concerned.
We have now a reform where some primary teachers' colleges, the pre-service teachers' colleges are being phased out, and the in-service colleges are being upgraded to be diploma awarding, and a national education institution, UNITE, has been established. The best and easiest way for us to include our program would be to go through UNITE. In case we don't succeed to have our program included at the level where it is developed, we could come up with a concept of continuous professional development, CPDs. If we can have it as a CPD, then I think we will succeed to have it reach most of the teachers.